Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Woo Curious podcast. Your map to the mystical, your key to the sacred, and your guide back home to yourself. I'm Eileen, a writer, a spiritual coach, energy healer, and slow living witch. This podcast is your invitation to explore a world where the mundane and the sacred intertwine. It's a haven for those ready to take the first steps into the realms of magic and mystery, providing a safe space for you to embark on your own enchanted journey towards healing and self-discovery. Here, I'll unveil the whispers of the mystical, the rituals often hidden in plain sight, and I'll engage in sacred conversation intended to stir your soul and lead you back into your power. I'm all about demystifying woo and witchcraft. So, whether you're a seasoned seeker or simply woo curious, I'm so delighted you've decided to join me on this journey. Let's make magic.
Hey Woo Crew, I wanted to let you know about the summer healing special that I am running. For the months of July, August, and September, I am offering support in the form of remote healing packages. So this looks like bi-weekly remote energy healings and readings with voice note support in between. Really the perfect way to receive healing and guidance through those busy summer months when maybe you don't have time to add another appointment to your calendar. You choose the day of the week, I drop into your energy while you go about your day, and I send over the guidance that I receive from your guides and the healing work that I do, along with any tools or homework that may be useful to you on your journey by voice note. In addition, you get voice note support in between these sessions for the entire month. If you are interested in jumping into this, I've left the link to hop on in below, but you can also come on over to Instagram at I am Eileen March or send me an email, Eileen@myluminouslife. I've left a link below as well for a 30-minute free coffee chat to discuss whether this offer is a fit for you.
Hello, and welcome back, Woo Crew, to another episode of the Woo Curious podcast. I am your host, Eileen, and I'm here today with Chris Williams. Chris is the founder and owner of Shine Wellness and Activate Abundance Academy. She's dedicated to empowering women holistic practitioners to create soul-led, prosperous, heart-centered businesses without the hustle and aggressive marketing and sales tactics that feel so out of alignment for so many women. Yes. She is known for simplifying the process of growing a six-figure business using the practical steps inside of her proprietary process, the Soulful Abundance System. She lives in North Carolina with her husband, Casey, and is mom to 3 amazing boys. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here to chat with you today.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. It's always a pleasure to connect. We were chatting before we dropped into record, just saying how lovely it is to collaborate with fellow heart-led entrepreneurs.
Oh, absolutely. It really makes it so much more fun and much more easeful to build and grow our business when we get to be with like-minded women.
For sure. So, as I like to start with all of my guests, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your journey that led you to where you are now with this business and how your relationship with the woo or perhaps spirituality has supported you along this journey.
Yeah. Oh, this is such a great question because, I think that spirituality and woo, I think I was woo before I knew it was woo. Right. It was always, I'm like, I don't know what that word meant, but I was always very attracted to something that felt sacred to me. Right. So I knew that there was like this sacred connection when I was a little girl climbing trees. I loved to be in the woods. I loved to climb trees. I loved to be outside. I loved to be in nature. And, I love crystals. I loved that connection, which I think since I've, grown, I'm 56, going to be 57 this year, has turned into more of the woo. But to me, it's really connecting to intuition. It's connecting to our own divine insights and wisdom and connecting to something that allows us to feel that connection to something greater. And that has really, when I look back on, my life as a child and growing up and, going through the things, I can just see that this sense of guidance, which I now know to be intuitive, is something that has definitely been helping me throughout my business and life, even before I knew I could label it. Now that I can label it, oh, that was an intuitive hit. Oh, that was a divine download. Oh, that was, I can look back, right? Hindsight's 2020. We can kind of look back and see, oh, yeah. And it's because I did this that allowed me to have the space and the time to tap into that divine download, or because I gave myself the space, it allowed me to tap into and follow my heart, or, take that next step that even though I didn't know exactly how it was going to happen in the end, it was still, a solid intuitive feeling that I took because it felt like it was the right thing to do.
I love that. I love too that you speak to that experience that so many of us have, that we were woo before we knew what
Yeah, we
woo meant.
knew who was.
Yeah. And I think that's just an innate part of being a child, is
Mhm,
having that connection to the magic and the mystery,
mhm.
and feeling that really close tie to nature, and
Yep.
being fascinated by the shiny crystals and things like
Mhm.
that. And a lot of my guests have a journey where they kind of lost that connection in their teen years, their early 20s, and then work to rediscover it in their 30s and 40s. Do you feel like you kept the connection from the story you told? It sounds kind of like you
Yeah,
did.
I think I did, but not. There were pieces and times through my life where it wasn't really intentional. Later on my life, it
Mm.
became more of an intentional connection where I was like, okay, I want to do this on a daily basis. I know that if I trust this piece, so I think that comes with learning and growing with life experience, that it's, yeah, this is what happens when I do this. When I feel this feeling and then explore this in this way, that is actually going to lead me into a positive place. If I go in this direction, or if I do this, that is going to, I definitely had bouts of anxiety and depression when I was growing up. And I was married for 17 years, went through a divorce, had to start all over
Mm-hmm.
again in my 40s, late
Mm-hmm.
40s. And, that I think whenever we go through processes like that, it's hard to discern that we're taken care of in that moment. It's really, on this time where we look back and we're like, oh, that's why that had to happen. Or, oh,
Yeah.
that's why I stopped into this place, even though I had no idea why I decided that I needed to do that. Or, oh, that's why I actually took this course that I was so drawn to. Right.
Right.
So, yeah, I think we do kind of weave in and out of it, but I don't think we ever lose that connection. I think we just lose that awareness, and we become more
Yeah.
intentional once we realize.
Yeah, that's a really lovely way of putting it, because it's
Mhm.
for so many people who feel like they lost the connection or the awareness, it's a remembering. It's still
Mhm.
there below the surface. And I love that you're speaking to that hindsight piece of learning to trust your intuition and see
Mhm.
where it leads. For
Yeah.
so many women who've lost that connection and that trust, it takes practice of starting to be like, well, this doesn't make all the sense in the world, but I'm going to do it and see what
Exactly.
happens.
Yes.
And it is in hindsight that we can look back and say, oh, yeah, that's why I had that call. Or, oh, that's why I had it and I didn't do it. And I probably should have
Yeah.
sometimes too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got such a great example of the way that this kind of manifested just in my life. And it was while I was going through the divorce and I was looking for a place to live. And I thought in my conscious brain, I'm like, I want a piece of land. We actually lived on a 50-acre farm. I was homeschooling our children. We got to spend time out in
Mm.
nature, and we actually had this beautiful creek in the back. And one year it dried up and we got to like dig in the creek in it. We found crystals. And so my kids like called it like the magical crystal mine place. It was really, really sweet and special. And so when we were going through the divorce, it was his family's farm. We bought it from his family. I'm like,
Mm.
you know what? I'm not going to make him sell the farm because I wanted to go to my boys. So,
Right.
I'm like, I'm going to have to find my own piece. And so I was looking and I couldn't find anything and I couldn't find anything and I couldn't find anything and couldn't find anything. And I had also always been deeply connected to, the Celtic symbolism and stories. And I was driving one day and I saw this neighborhood and it had this big sign up, and it was neighborhood. So I wasn't even looking for a neighborhood, right? I'm looking for a piece of land or where a house is on a piece of land. But it said Kelswater. And I'm like, oh, it's got a really pretty Celtic knot on it. And I'm like, you know what? I've got some time. I'm just going to drive through the neighborhood. And I drove. So again, it was one of those just, why don't you go take a left here and drive through the neighborhood? Just check it out. And I did. And they had a model house. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Why don't you check out the model house? So I went into the model house, and the lady that was there for the day, I'm like, oh, I'm just looking around, just wanted to kind of see the model house. And she wasn't the normal person that was there. She had come in for that day, and she said, oh, what are you looking for? And I said, well, this is what's going on. And I told her, and no lie, I walked out of that model home pre-approved for a loan for a brand new house. I got to pick out the lot. On the back of the lot was all trees and a creek running behind it. I'm like, what?
Perfect.
How often does that ever happen? By the way, I had no job. I was still a single mom. We were going through a divorce.
Oh, wow.
So I was going back to massage school to try to get my certification in that. And I was just like, wow, that was a divine download. Like that doesn't happen normally. And even as we were going through the process, my mom had said to me, she's like, Chris, you might not get this house. And I'm like, yep, I might not, but I also might. Like, what if everything just were, and it did, and we're sitting in it. This is my office. I got to have it built and pick out everything, and I'm like, what? How does that even happen? Like,
open to the possibility, right?
Yes. I just, was trusting that intuitively I was led in that direction. And it was because I took those small steps. Take a left, right?
Yeah.
Go into the model home, share with this person who just happened to be there on the day, which just happened to be with the builder that wanted to get rid of the last 4 lots, that just happened to be in this neighborhood, that just happened to be Celtic, right? It was like the synchronicities that happen there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Synchronicities. It's very playful almost too, the way that it's like, well, like, what's going to happen if I take a left? Like nothing, if nothing had been at the end of that road, nothing bad would have happened. You'd have spent a couple of minutes driving around and then carried on your way. And the same goes for stepping into that home. And I think that's a hallmark of a lot of intuitive guidance, is that it's not insistent. You do have to be paying attention.
Yes.
And decide to be like, okay, let's play along. It often feels like that playful, synchronous kind of guidance that we get when we're listening to our intuition.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, that's just one example of many, many times that has happened in my life and on this journey in building my own business and, becoming an entrepreneur and supporting women and building and growing their own businesses. But I can see that has led me along the way. I think the key for many of us is to just take the step that we hear, just make that left turn instead of overthinking, do I really need to take a left turn? But what if it's a right turn? Well, should I really, should I go down to the next street and take a U-turn? Like, we tend to overcomplicate something that is actually really innate and really simple.
Yeah. We get into our brains instead of letting it be in our bodies and our hearts. Yeah. And you talk about when you are working with your clients, that inner game or the inner piece of building big businesses, because you help women build 6-7-figure holistic businesses.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak a little bit to that piece?
Yeah, I would love to. So, when I first started building my business, I thought it was all strategy. Just tell me what to do, right? Like, tell me to do the right thing and I will be able to build a business. And I got multiple certifications. I was a massage therapist. I was a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher while I was actually raising my boys. I was always drawn to, natural foods and more holistic ways of being. So I became a functional nutritional therapist as well. And that led me into health coaching and life coaching, right? So, the certifications gave me these great skills, which also felt really good and spiritual as well. It felt really in alignment with what it is that I wanted to do at the time. But I didn't have the know-how or the strategy or the practical right? And
Mm-hmm.
so when I was first starting, I thought all I needed was the practical. And now, as I've been building and growing and becoming successful and helping other people to become successful, what I realized is that there is an inner game that comes first. And there's an inner game
Right.
that has to happen first before the strategy. And when I talk about the soulful abundance system and the strategy that I teach my clients, we always come from the inner game always happens first. And the inner game is making a decision of what energy are we in right now? Like, what are we choosing to be in?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what are the thoughts and the mindset and the beliefs, the identity that we're taking on? And that has to happen first in order for us to then take action. Many people think that it's the other way around, that once I take the action and have the thing, then I'll be able to feel this certain way. And it's actually the opposite. It's no, we get to decide what is the experience that we want to have now? What is the energy that I want to be in? What is it that I want to feel? What are the thoughts and beliefs that are going to support me to feel this way? And when we're in that place, we're in this beautiful resonance. We're in alignment, what feels good and true for us, so that when we're taking action, the action actually turns out a lot better because we're not taking action from this place of force or hustle or I should, or I got to get a client, or I got to close the deal, or whatever. We're actually already intentionally aligned with the energy that we want to be in. And so we're in the energy of what I call as abundance versus being in the energy of scarcity. And that means that we're looking for solutions versus problems, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that piece of what we focus on
Growth.
expands. It's all
Exactly.
about bringing that subconscious mind
Yeah.
on board to
Yep.
seek for the opportunities that are aligned with where we want to be and where we want to
Exactly.
go.
Exactly. I joke around with my clients, I'm like, look, we can't meditate our way to success, but we
If
definitely,
only.
right? I know, like we can't just sit there and do nothing and say, okay, bring me, $10 million or whatever it is. Bring me a new house, bring me whatever. But we absolutely can use meditation, to get calm, to get those divine downloads, right? To choose
Hmm.
the energy that we want to be in first, and then we take the action. It's just,
Hmm.
we want to take inspired action, not forced action.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And when you're not fighting against that resistance that comes
Mhm.
up when you are in that lack state or that
Yep.
seeing all the problems and the why it can't work or what's going to be
Yes.
hard about it,
Yes.
you're still in the exact same place in
Yep.
like the 3D world. It's
Yep.
just that all of a sudden you've made it so much harder for yourself to
Exactly.
take action and move
Exactly.
forward. And
Yep.
that applies in life and in
Mhm.
business. I was speaking to
Yeah.
a client this morning about this very thing about,
Yeah.
that she can't wait till her life looks the way she wants it to look before she starts enjoying it. There's
Yes.
got to be a way to build that enjoyment now so that
Yes.
life becomes what she wants it to be.
Oh, absolutely. Amen. And I think we're starting to learn that, now that more of us are also seeing the science behind the woo, right?
Mhm.
We're seeing the quantum physics and the quantum theory that's coming that's actually showing that, this isn't just, yes, it's part of it is imagination, but there's actually science behind it now to prove and to support what it is that intuitively we've been doing in the past or where we've been guided, right? To say, yeah, actually,
Yeah.
what you focus on does grow. Because if you start thinking about a yellow car, guess what? You're going to start seeing lots and lots of yellow cars. If you start
Yeah.
thinking about what a crappy day you have, you're going to start seeing all the ways that the day is going crappy versus, you know what? I'm so grateful that I get to have this experience. And I'm so lucky that I have fresh water and food and safety. And that energetic shift actually has us then focus on more of what it is that we're thinking about and more of what it is that we're focusing on.
Yeah.
So I
I
think,
love that I came into the woo as the science really started to support it. And it's probably why I was able to step into it. I lived most of my life with a very like super hyper rational,
mhm.
not spiritual at all since I was quite young, to all of a sudden being like, wait a minute, there's more here. There's more depth of meaning and purpose.
Yes,
And now we have neuroscience and quantum physics to
yes.
back up and give my skeptical part of my brain this like, it's okay, you're not crazy.
Exactly, exactly. You're not just making all of this up. Like it's really true. Like, Yeah, for sure. And, I'm so glad that we do have the neuroscience and we have more people like Joe Dispenza and, all these, other people that are now coming into the world and sharing and then showing the neuroscience behind it. And the more that they learn about it, the more that they do see that, we do have neuroplasticity in our brain. And so it speaks, I think, to many of us that feel supported with that physical aspect to support what is happening in the non-physical.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly does. My coaching certificate is through the Center for Applied Neuroscience. So
Oh, yay.
I loved having that
Mm-hmm.
background. At the same
Yeah.
time, I was taking wild medicine energy healers training.
Mm,
There was science there, but it wasn't
yes.
that same way. It's that remembering the wisdom that lives in our bones inside of all of us. And it sounds like that's
Yeah.
the thread that you pull through all of your work with your clients, with women you help now, and even as you started to build your business.
Yeah, for sure. And isn't it so neat to see how the universal truths kind of like weave into it, right? As we are like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, yes, we have, the law of attraction, but woo is so much more than just the law of attraction, right? There's
Yeah.
multiple universal laws that are happening out there all the time that are exciting and that are still backed by science too.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Mhm.
the listeners who are maybe growing their business right now, how do you help your clients find the trust
Mhm.
in listening to their intuition, in leaning into that
Mhm.
inner work when everything external to us is constantly pressuring us to
Yeah,
continue to hustle, to
yeah,
continue to push and
yeah,
grow?
yeah, it is. One of the things that I do with my clients, and we actually do that in the very, very beginning, and we come back to it all the time because again, the inner game is the foundation. I like to think of our inner game is that firm stability, right? It's that foundation which is going to support any of the actions that we take in our business. And so one of the things that I teach my client is called the daily alignment practice. And that is
Mm.
something where we spend time intentionally choosing, how do I want to feel today? What is the experience that I want to have today? And there's actually, 4 different steps. The clients that work with me that are in my programs, we also have a Voxer group and we share that so that people can do it together, right? And community and the energy of community, I think is really, really powerful. So Monday mornings, I'm like, okay, guys, it's time for our intentions. What is the energy you want to be in this week? Right? What do you want to feel this week? And we start there. And then, okay, what are the 3 to 5 beliefs that can support you in feeling that this week? And then we get into now what is it that you want to create this week? And then lastly is what are the inspired actions that you're going to take to move you forward? So when we put that on repeat every day, what happens
Yeah.
is that it becomes natural. We start creating those new neural pathways. It just becomes a part of us. And it allows us to be more proactive versus reactive to the circumstances and the situations that happen not only in our life, but also in our business. And so when we do start popping into the self doubt, when we do start popping into to the fear or the imposter syndrome or anything else that comes up, the first thing is we notice, well, first of all, it's just a thought, right? As you
Yeah.
know, it's part of science. And we're like, okay, this is the thought that I'm having that is giving me this experience, right? So,
Yeah.
what is the experience that I want to have? I want to feel calm.
Mhm.
I want to feel safe. I want to feel confident. I want to feel abundant, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Then we get to say, great, all right, so let me write down some thoughts that are going to allow me to feel that. And it doesn't necessarily have to even be about the situation. One of the thoughts or memories that I have whenever I start feeling, nervous or scared or overwhelmed is my 18-year-old son. And he is such a hugger. And he comes in and he is always like, Mama, I just love you, Mama. You're just like the best mama ever. And he gives me this big hug. And so, you know what? That feels calm and peaceful and safe and loving and abundant. And so I know that if I think of that, that is going to create a new feeling inside of my body from which to make a different choice about, all right, now, what is the experience? What do I want to create for the rest of the day? Right. So
Mhm.
it's this energetic alignment principle that happens, but we're still doing it intentionally. Right. It's not magic.
Yeah.
It's not like we're waving a magic wand. It's like we're like, okay, what do I want? Right. This is
Mhm.
what's happening. This is just the circumstance. What is it that I want to feel about this versus letting
Yeah.
the circumstance dictate what it is that we're feeling?
It's such an empowering
Mhm.
learning and knowledge.
Yep.
And I love that you have created a space of community and accountability within your program, because so often when we are embarking on these journeys of growth and transformation, whether it be personal or
Yeah.
business, it's a really lonely journey.
Yeah.
And you're human, and our brains are very much wired to look for the negative, to
Yep.
look for the threats.
Yep.
And so often, clients of mine will fall back into old habits or patterns, and they'll start shooting themselves about
Uh-huh.
what I should know better, I shouldn't do
Yep.
this. But all of us are susceptible to
Mhm.
that. And there is, as you said, such power in community, in holding each other through those tougher moments, in reminding each other of the light that we see
Yep.
in them, and
Absolutely.
having them return that favor. And then the
Mhm.
accountability piece as well.
Yeah.
Somebody to say, okay, do it,
Yeah.
because it takes effort. It's a new habit, it's a new muscle to
It
build,
is.
right?
It is. Yes. And mindset is a muscle, as you know, right?
Hmm.
It's not something that we do only when we feel like it. We're always creating, we're always thinking. Our brain is always going. So, it's not like we can go to the gym and lift weights once a month. If you want to get better at something, you have to practice. And
Yeah.
new neural pathways are based on repetition. And so the more you repeat and the more that you feel,
Hmm.
that's how new things get created. It's just we haven't been taught this, right?
Hmm.
I didn't learn this until I was in my 40s. Looking
Yeah.
back on, oh, I actually have control over my circumstance. I'm actually not a victim to a circumstance. I actually can decide what I want to make this mean. I can actually
Yeah.
decide, how I want to feel
Yeah.
versus being so reactive all the time, right? We have that fight, freeze, or flee, right?
Hmm.
And we don't, when we give our power away to a circumstance, then that's exactly what we're doing. We're kind of losing our own power to decide how we
Yeah.
do this. So it becomes easier as we practice because it becomes more of an automatic thing. Our brain likes to put things that are automatic, right? So the thing
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
think about the most is going to go on automatic. And so it's going to create that new groove. So it becomes
Yeah.
easier as we go, but we need somebody to teach us. Like it's not something that we're taught, right? We're
Yeah.
just not taught that in school. I don't know any business textbook that's going to teach you that. We're not taught that in many certification programs unless you're going specifically for that.
Hmm.
So many clients that come to me, this is, they might have heard about it before, or maybe they've heard about the law of attraction, but they haven't really done any work daily and consistently because nobody's taught them how to actually do that so that they can feel more empowered and in control of their life
Yeah.
and business.
Yeah, it's a missing link from
Yeah.
much of the way we have been raised in our societies. And I love that you use the gym metaphor, because it's one that, it's tied into this repetition. I've heard it many times, and every time I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, right.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
this, of course you wouldn't expect to go to the gym once and have a six pack.
Yeah,
So why do we expect to do something like future pulling or
right.
scripting or
Yeah,
these mindset exercises
yeah,
once or twice,
yeah,
and suddenly be cured of our pessimism or our
yeah,
scarcity mindset? Or
exactly. Right.
you've been practicing those neural pathways since you were quite little, and so to get out of those ruts or out of
Mhm.
that habitual pattern requires energy, which your
Yeah,
brain doesn't want to spend unless it has to.
exactly. Yes. Oh, I love that. Yes. The brain wants to conserve energy. It's going to take the path of least resistance, which is what we put on repeat for sure. So it does take energy for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Energy and practice. It's wonderful. I love that.
Yay. Yes. And it's so
Yeah.
funny because, it's so interesting that people call this woo because this just feels like, no, this is just like natural human brain science, and as we
Yeah.
learn about it really is just the way our brain works. It's
It
truly
very much is. And
Mhm.
up until recently, though, for the people who did use these methods and practice this kind of way of living, it seems like magic from the
Yes.
outside
Yes.
often.
Yes.
I'm reading Mind Magic right now, which is written by a neuroscientist with his PhD. Like, he's a brain surgeon. And
Ooh, I'm gonna have to
it's
get that one. That
so
sounds
good. Yeah,
amazing.
it's new. It's still in hardcover. And it's such a great, tangible evidence-based piece of literature or work that
Beautiful.
shows why it seems like magic from the outside if we
Yep.
don't understand the inner workings. And
Mhm.
so for a long time, I think a lot of the woo it's working with that
Mhm.
brain of ours that I
Mhm.
remember when I was in high school, we learned that the brain stops changing after you're an infant. Like it
Yes.
stops being plastic. And
Yes.
now we know that's not true. And so
Yes.
there's so
Mhm.
many advances, but we still carry those beliefs and
Mhm.
behaviors that we laid down when we were so young. So
Yeah.
it's a constant practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the beauty now is that when we start doing this for ourselves, it actually ripples into other people's lives,
Yes.
right? I can see my son doing it now. He's 18 and he navigates some really interesting, scary situations, and he's just doing so well. And it's because he is in the environment where he's seeing how I've responded or reacting or the way that I talk, and he's picking that up, right?
Yeah.
So that's the beauty, that the more that we do this for ourselves, it actually ripples and it affects other people around us as well.
Yeah, I think that's touching on a point of, women who are struggling with the idea of investing in themselves in the
Yeah,
form of business support or
yeah,
even just personal support
yeah,
is it feels selfish. We've been taught since we're so little to be selfless, to put
yeah,
other people's needs ahead of our own. And so spending money on ourselves
yeah,
often feels hard.
yeah,
And while I believe it's valuable in and of itself, often it's easier to think about in terms of, well, what impact am I going to be rippling out to the world, to my kids, to my
yeah,
family, to my clients?
yeah.
What's the impact that this investment will make?
Exactly, exactly. And, it's so interesting. I remember hearing one of my coaches many years ago say that when a man builds a business, he doesn't ever go to his wife and say, "Hey, can I invest in this
Mm.
business?" And he sees it as investing in his business, not himself. But when
Hmm.
we are starting to build and grow our business, for some weird reason, we think that we're taking money out of the grocery budget and it's for us, right?
Hmm.
Versus I am building a business, right? And so we have
Yeah.
we have to, really see and give ourselves permission that no, this is a business. This is not, yes, it's going to feed us. Yes, it's going to serve us. Yes, it's going to help us. But there is a difference between going and getting a massage or, whatever it is that we want to do for ourselves and investing
Hmm.
in that way, and also investing
Hmm.
in our business and having the support that we need. And there's no business out there that does not have some sort of support in order to be successful.
Yeah, it's that same kind of mentality where men often struggle less to invest even just in themselves and their own personal enjoyment.
Yes.
I'm going to go on a
Yeah.
trip. I'm
Yeah.
going to go fishing with the boys. Those
Yes.
are stereotypical, but they
Yeah.
exist. And that same thing comes around for women where it's like, well, I'm going to buy some new clothes for the kids,
Yes.
right? Or
Yeah.
just, again, that those habitual
Yeah.
patterns and through no fault of our own, but
Mhm.
it's definitely time to shift that narrative. And I know that's part of the
Mhm.
work that you're doing with
Yeah.
your offers in the world.
Yeah, and it's not that we're, not going to continue to give, right? I think that's some
Yeah.
the fear that many women have is, oh, well, I can't do this because then it's going to take away from something else, right? And you
Hmm.
get to see the both and in it, right? How do I have the both and? How do I continue to give and have really good boundaries so that I know that I am well sourced and taken care of so that I can be even better in these areas?
Hmm.
How can I take action in this way and have a both and versus seeing it as, somebody gets less than. And I
Yeah.
think that's just also just a cultural entrainment that we've grown up with, that the world is one pie. And if someone takes a bigger piece of the pie, there's less for everybody else. And I tell my clients, I'm like, there is not one pie, there's a whole bakery. And we get to get into that bakery and we get to make more pies or cookies or cakes or whatever it is that we want. That's the truth, is that
Yes.
there's not just a limit. There is abundance of everything that we need available, possibly. Doesn't mean that we don't actually have to make it. We do.
Yeah.
There is an abundance of it, right? There is not a
Yeah.
limited amount. And that's beautiful when we can get into that mind space of seeing that
Hmm.
abundance is available everywhere all the time. It's, sometimes we just have to action those opportunities.
And knowing that women who have abundance in their lives are much more likely to spread it and share it and do good in their communities and uplift other women. It is,
Absolutely. Absolutely. 1000%, right? We can't give from an empty bucket, right? Whether it's
yeah,
our own self-care, if we're depleted, we can't give. But the
yeah,
same thing, if our businesses are not making money, we can't actually affect lives. We can't
hmm,
actually give in the way that we want to give. When we have profitable businesses that impact others, then we can also share that, and we can
yeah,
contribute to the world in ways that feel really good to us, whether, and some of that gets to come back to us. Some of it,
yeah,
absolutely, like I got to have the trip to the lavender fields in Provence last summer. I got to take
yeah,
my family on vacation. I got to buy my own new car. Yes, I get to do all of those things. And I also gave away $20,000 in cash and support to other women. And I also created
hmm,
scholarships for other women. And I also give in multiple ways and in very, very generous in multiple ways. But if I am not going to allow myself to receive, that actually kinks the flow, and I also can't give.
yeah. Yeah, and that's a place that so many of us struggle with, that
Yeah.
receiving piece. I love
Mhm.
that you shared that about how it helps you, being abundant helps you live your life and help and serve those around you. It's such a beautiful
Exactly.
place to come from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, we could go on forever. I know
I
this is,
know.
we're going to have to do another podcast. You're going to come on mine and then we're going to do more. Like there's so
Yeah.
many different great, great avenues we could go here.
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree. This happens with many a guest. I
Mhm.
feel like it's evidence of how the collaborative
Yeah.
nature of women, the connection pieces, that rise, sister, rise
Yes.
mentality is really, it's starting to shift the world. I have so much hope for us for the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm all in with that.
hmm
Mhm.
So, for listeners of the show who are building businesses and interested in working with you, I know that you have the Activate Abundance Academy available. Can you
Yeah.
speak a little bit to that and how listeners can connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. So Activate Abundance Academy is actually my signature program that I developed. When I started creating success in my business, I wanted to create something so that other women could do it as well. And it is for women who are holistic practitioners, whether they're nutritionists, health coaches, life coaches, energy workers, sound therapists, having a holistic practice, because that was my experience for the past 30 years of being a wellness entrepreneur. And so it's a year program that takes women through my soulful abundance system, which
Mm,
is how are we building a profitable, heart centered business that is allowing us to create, whether it's your first six figures or your next six figures, or if you want to scale. These are foundational, timeless principles that are taught that I even keep coming back to in my business over and over and over and over again. And so
mm,
that's one option. If anybody's interested in having support in building and growing their business, is Activate Abundance Academy. But we also have some other things too. We have Holistic Business Foundations, which is a shorter program. They can certainly join my free Facebook group. It's called Holistic Business Abundance. So I do live trainings every single week. I love
mm,
to teach, so I have lots of free master classes and, ways to help people create quick wins. There's never any push or aggressive sales tactic. My intention is to support you in helping you get whatever it is that you want. And so,
mm.
that does take a call for me to know what it is that you actually want. And then I can either share a free resource or a video or a training that is going to help you. Or if you want my support implementing, then we can talk about, the best fit based on where it is in your business.
Oh,
So, yeah, and would love to share with your community. We do have a free resource. It's called the Business Basics Checklist for Consistent 10K Months. And that is something that has really been very helpful to many women. And then since we talked about the daily alignment practice, I'm happy to throw that into. We actually have a daily alignment practice on how you can actually do that on your own with a
Amazing.
worksheet that your listeners can go through as well. Happy to share that.
Wonderful. That's so generous. And I can speak from experience that there's so much value inside that Facebook group.
Oh, thank
Your resources are really wonderful and definitely no pressure. I've attended a couple of your master classes and it's always just felt like a beautiful held space from a giving place. And that warm invitation should it feel right
Oh,
for
good.
people in there.
I'm so
And so all of the links for connecting with Chris and for seeing more about our programs, for grabbing these freebies will be below in the show notes for you. If you liked this episode, please go ahead and give us a rating, leave a review. It really helps us get discovered. I still say us. It's me, just me.
and your guests.
And my guests. Yes, of course, my guests. Yeah, it really, really helps. And once again, please reach out, connect with Chris. She is such a delightful human. I'm so pleased to have her in my world. Thank you so much, Woo Crew. We'll be back again next week with another episode. Bye for now.